meeting would be. Thank you. Shall I start all over? Francesca, the floor is yours. So what we have done with the EU Green Deal, it's a moral project on one thing, and it can be used as a geopolitical tool, but we have to use it in the right way and not top down, but also bottom up. And that is what we have missed in Europe. We have forced our industries to follow certain rules and regulations instead of allowing this spontaneous order that is provided by the markets in order to survive, to provide the solutions. And if Brazil, especially the COP meeting, is able to adapt that and translate this, that we need this bottom-up approach also by incorporating all those many partners and not just saying them, you have to follow that, then I think COP can be a success. But if we look at the last COP meeting, there were 100,000 delegates there. What was the outcome? Very little. So I'm hopeful for Brazil to provide great solutions and to incorporate the rest of the world and kind of be the leader, but especially having all those geographical and climate issues in place at first hand, you could show what can be done. And I hope you will be able to do that.
Okay, let's see how it comes as the new Brazil that's coming. I don't know yet, but I think that it's very important that we can understand how Brazil is today and how we're approaching the world today. Okay, for us, you have really a view concerning the world that we're connecting crises and connect issues. Okay, it's not as it used to be in the past that we have food problems or hunger, and you go in a track. Food security is coming together with climate security, water security, energy security, mining security. So we are now with really trying to understand this new moment of the world in connecting things, connecting crises, and connect people. Okay. Second, Brazil understands very well this new dimension, this emergent dimension of the problems of the crisis. This is a planetary dimension, not necessarily because of tipping point, but Brazil recognized tipping point in Amazon regions and no reaction of the world 2 years ago, okay, politically, okay? The heads of state signed it, of the Amazon basin. For the first time, the world, the head of state recognized formally that tipping point was happening and no reaction of the world. It's unbelievable. So we need to understand which world we are discussing, we are coming, and to have some countries that could really come to bring things together to facilitate our understanding about transition and the new understanding about transition and what's happening today in the world. So for us, we are trying to be back to the world based on soft power, because this is what was not our choice in the past. We are not a country that comes with hard power, not a country that wants to go to discuss defense based on armies. We want to discuss defense in that sense of the societies. We are also working hard to preserve our democracy, okay? Because we're so exposed the last years with the Bolsonaro government. I recommend never doing this, okay? It's really perverse for the country, for the society, for our future. Our institutions are completely fragmented, okay? It's really critical, the situation, when the democracy, when President Lula was elected, to check the numbers during the transition government, I was so worried. And I'm a civil officer, okay? So I know civil servants, I know the state, okay? I was trained based on the state. It's very important that Brazil will have peace with our neighbors for more than 150 years. And peace will really become something very important in the future, not only today. Not only because the wars, but because the new wars, the cyber wars, okay, that you have. How you can, the mining, the minerals wars that are coming, the conflicts related to water, And it's very interesting how we're coming to discuss this in the context of the new movement of the world. So, and it is also is very interesting to understand that Brazil is coming to discuss the impact of this, what's happening today in the new international order, because this is really complex. And this international order for us is disruptive, and you have a disconfiguration of the world. So we try to react, and what's happened with the United States is very illustrative. Okay, we try to react based on the past, because we're coming to trade, for example, go to WTO, and WTO is over. Okay, so it's very interesting because the feelings, sometimes you feel so out of order as society. But private sector is very interesting. You have this dispute between far right and left, et cetera, but private sector is coming when you have the crisis. So, and you cannot forget that when you go to face this crisis with the United States, what we have in the rules: no truth, no rules, no trust, no limits, and the brutalism. This shocked us because as a society, what is this? And of course, we're back to discuss about democracy and sovereignty. Yesterday, I tried to ask, but I forgot it. When you're going to discuss data, it's not only transparency, access, etc. It's sovereignty of data also, or data sovereignty. This is really critical, and how this because of cyber wars. Okay, it's true. So we need to understand this momentum of the world, and Brazil understands today that we are open society and we want to be part of the world again. What it means: bilateral, trilateral, regional cooperation, global cooperation, multilateral cooperation, everything matters to us. Everything. We are really engaged on this. And that's why you have the last 3 years that I mentioned, G20, BRICS Plus, and COP30. And when you go to BRICS Plus, as you mentioned here, I'm a new member. I'm the new member of the strategic committee of the National Development Bank and the BRICS Plus Bank. Okay, I'm going to China not because of this. 1 month later, I will be back to China except because of this. And for us, we understand BRICS Plus. It's really a block, like-minded blocks. Okay, coming with convergence of interest to understand. It's not the only one. Okay, to understand how we can go in the world because the world's change. Okay, and this platform, it is very interesting because we have different dynamics. But I mentioned to her during the lunch, you know that Iran is part of this because of China, etc. And Iran was not part of the Paris Agreement. But the Declaration of BRICS, Iran signed, agreed with Paris Agreement. What it means that we have different dynamics of international world coming to discuss things that, of course, other issues you don't want to discuss, but you have conversions of interest in this. And Brazil is the only country of the Western world because South Africa is the middle of the world. So it's very important, in my understanding. I think that the partnership between Brazil and the new cooperation process between Brazil and the European Union, I think that's the best bet that you can have today, considering the Western world. Okay, please.
To ask you a question then.
Okay. And okay, God. And I do believe that you have this bottom-up approach. I agree, consider bilateral cooperation. And I think if you read the bilateral cooperation that Brazil signed between Brazil and China for the next 50 years, okay, because we have the first cycle of 50 years. This is Chinese cooperation. And you try to do the same with the United States, consider the last 200 years of cooperation. And what's happening is the tariff wars, etc. And Brazil is coming to renegotiate things. And I could say it's what build fossil fuels and minerals, okay, and organized crime. This is my bet, okay? So it's not climate change, but this is power politics. Probably will be this, but let's see what's happened. So what I'm saying here is that you have in Brazil the opportunity to discuss bilaterally if we're able to unlock Mercosur agreement, okay, really a new agenda to come together. It's not because you don't have the NDC, the new ambitions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that this will be something against the process of climate change. No, because we came together 10 years ago to have Paris Agreement. Brazil was a key player, okay, to design Paris Agreement together with European countries. So that's why you had a bilateral agreement with China, with the United States, with Germany and Norway before arriving in Paris, okay, together, the head of states. So it's very interesting how we can move the pieces considering shared interests and shared vision. This is really important point when you go outside the issue of climate change and disease, et cetera, to discuss, for example, trade, innovation, organized crime, because this transnational perspective of organized crime, okay, and also security and defense. Probably you don't know, Brazil, with our investments in defense, in the last 15 years, we have moving the investment from United States to Europe. Okay, and you have powerful, like Embraer, okay, this is part of the game. And also the debate about the second generation of sustainable agricultural fuels, and the debate about conservation, et cetera, et cetera. So we have really opportunities to come and to frame under the umbrella of climate security, new pathways, not only based on food security, but energy security, understanding that transition will allow us to have some conversions of interest to be closer back together. What's the key point behind the scenes? Values. Because we are part of the Western world. And the world is moving to a non-Western world. Okay? And these countries, they are civilizations. We cannot forget it. Okay? When you go to discuss with China, with India, with Japan, or Turkey, okay, Iran. Sometimes people come on and not discuss with a child. We discuss with civilization, empires, Russia. The empires, come on, the culture of this society. When I go there, I try to understand the culture. God, it's different. We are so young, the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. And the European countries used to come together with us, part of our history. So I think that we have really good conditions to restore political rooms, to not only to dialogue, but to come with to set a new agenda of cooperation, having climate change as really a seed to discuss transition and also to discuss the short-term perspectives. The trade-offs are very important. And why? Because we need to change and we need to pay for this. So when you have CBAM, for example, without knowing the costs, okay, numbers that was completely based on NGOs, and to have private sector from Europe flying to Brazil asking, please support us, because I know that you can go with this soy, another one, to another markets, and you don't know the numbers about costs. And of course, you don't have price to pay for this. The market will not price. What's happening in the world?
So what you were saying, Barbara, about a bottom-up emphasis at COP, and that being your preference, how does that chime with your vision in that sense?
Well, thank you. The CO2 prices are totally made up right now, and and the problem. I just have the Austrian examples. We calculated that if now the free the how do you call it? Sorry. The free exchange of the certificates is over. Now, for example, it costs the largest steel producer in Austria, which used to be a state-owned company and was privatized under the socialists, which was great, and all of a sudden it took off. It's called voestalpine. They sell their steel everywhere in the world because they are really very special, and it will cost them per year $1 billion of additional costs or euros just to keep the certificates level. And if that means no competitiveness at all, they will lose out to the Indian steel producers or to maybe the US steel producers, which means all jobs will be lost. So if we can't get the prices fixed, and I'm not a fan of CO2 pricing. I don't have an alternative right now in place, but I don't think this is the right way to do it. But what I wanted to ask you before, Isabel, if I may, since you mentioned BRICS Plus, and since everything here needs to be financed in one way or the other, how do you view the money that we need, or what kind of money will we use, especially when it comes to BRICS Plus, to finance all those new technologies and innovations? What are the plans behind this new? They tried a gold standard, which I doubt will happen in the BRICS. But will there be something like a BRICS digital currency backed up with gold, or backed up maybe with with other metals or rare earth or whatever, that will also be important for our sustainability issues? Have you thought about that, or were you involved? Because it's just curiosity, but it is important that we need to tackle this financing issue. Are there any plans made up already for COP20 for COP30?
I'm not sure it will be made up for COP30, but you have a process. And you cannot forget the regional perspective of Brazil when you go to Latin America and South America, and China is there. Okay, so this is my personal opinion, is that when you go into Latin America, this is the weak point, that weak issue that we have today in our regional foreign policies, because we need to rebuild trust, and climate change is not part of this agenda. Okay, it's impressive. Okay, we are able to have agreements and deals with the rest of the world, not with Latin America. So it's very important to understand how bilaterally or trilaterally these countries are coming to come into the BRICS Plus, okay, to understand the dynamics of BRICS Plus, that, of course, they are discussing the new currency, et cetera, but not necessarily this will come for COP30, okay? And this is a process to try different countries together, absolutely different. We're emerging economies, but completely different. The culture, how we manage things, et cetera, et cetera. And you cannot forget also that to have BRICS Plus oil producers and renewable energies players at the same time. And these countries also have the domains of natural resources and critical minerals, okay? You know that when you go to discuss tropical forest basin, you have Amazonia, Amazon region, Congo, and Indonesia, Mekong basin. This is the new X of critical minerals. And the southwest of the Asia Southwest regions demands this. So this is a new architecture of the world. We are changing the architecture of the world. Climate change, climate politics will be part of this. Nature politics must be part of this. That, as I mentioned, okay, and this is really important if you come with shared values to promote innovative bottom-up cooperations that will allow us to be together, understanding the new dynamics of the world. Brazil has full diplomatic relations with all the countries in the world. We are part of a set, only 15 countries in the world have this. Brazil is part of this. And that's why I mentioned that we need to discuss, and it's coming in Brazil, a new strategic perspective of foreign policies, because again, we're discussing the moment today and the future. So for us, BRICS Plus is a like-minded blocks that we come to discuss convergence of interests, investments, et cetera, but it's not the only one. This is very important to.
What's your perspective, Barbara, on China's role in Brazil has a specific relationship with China? I think you've been hearing that Europe and Brazil are often in different places when it comes to friendship, allyship with China, competition with China. What's your perspective on where China fits in the European context?
Well, we've seen the investments that China has made in Europe, especially in the Balkans. Many of them went well. Some of them are really critical. When the Chinese press the button, then all of a sudden certain states will be bust if they have to repay the loans. We've seen, for example, what was very interesting for me, since we are in a harbor and in a trades town, what we've seen when Chinese took over the harbor of Piraeus a long time ago. It was one of the first big investments. All of a sudden, there were no strikes. Everything went smoothly. Just to give an example of how things can change if you have different ownership. The unions were kicked out, and Piraeus is now working and operating smoothly. However, so the question is, how much foreign direct investment do we allow? Do we want? And now I say as Europeans, because after all, China is a big power. Some people view it very critical and say it's a paper tiger, which I would not say. I would never dare to say that. You mentioned the old culture and history, that maybe we overestimate our role. We Europeans, we are the ones who are arrogant, and the rest of the world is looking down at us. We have unfortunately forgotten that we have not done the right things in the past 30 years. I would say very critically, self-critically. Not each country, but many of our countries. So there is no one-size-fits-all thing. But to come back to China, and as somebody working in monetary policy and finance, I look at what they do with the digital yuan, for example, very critically. I mean, they are technically super far advanced. If the ECB wants to do the digital euro, they have to wake up. It's long history, because the Chinese have everything in place already. And whether we want it or not is a different thing. If we implement it, that's a different thing. But their technology is way advanced, and this is the case in many other things. So first they copied, but now they innovate. And I think we have to wake up on that. So Europe is we don't play a role in the competition between China, say Brazil, India, and other parts of the world, also the US. We don't play a role anymore. Unfortunately, it's sad, but
No, yeah, I need to be a little bit like the pro-EU guy, no? Since that was my role. No, thank you very much. Thank you very much for waking us up, but let's not exaggerate. It's very true that we made huge mistakes to think that history was finished in 1989, and that it is unavoidable that everybody will always come to Rome, because all roads bring to Rome, and we are the center of the universe, and blah blah blah. Okay, but we are not hopeless, because at the end of the day, it's a cycle and counter cycles. I know that cycles take some centuries, so we may be done by the next counter cycle, but on for instance, in terms of potential engineering skills, our universities are not just dead. You come from us, from Germany, so so I think we have the possibility to catch up. But you are very right. to wake up. One very small question for Isabella, talking about the other big thing from which we need to wake up. The multilateralism, no? You said there is also very much bilateral relation, which is true. Although I think it's a little bit difficult for a law of mathematics to agree with 190 countries bilaterally. It's a little, okay, come si chiama? Matematica esponenziale. Okay, well, okay. But no, the question for Isabella is, do you wish, talking about green wishing or whatever, to have a unique EU person to talk with, or you prefer to talk with Portugal and Spain, just to mention two, and the others? So do you need something like the EU?
Look, let me try to explain. First of all, for us, just to answer you, I think that the women here were right. You are coming from the past, we are coming from the future, but we'll come together, we'll be together in the present, okay? So no problems. And but my feeling is that, of what is for us, in different debates around the world, it's not that Europe is not important, but to have another adults into the room. Okay, and the new international order is shaped today by the rise of China, India, Russia, Turkey, Brazil, Asian, Africans, okay, Middle East, the different dynamics happen today in the world. And for me, a big challenge is how Europe will come into this contest. Not only because your history, but because your role in the new international order that will, under the domain, the non-Western world. Oh, you have to go to polarized situation. You're pro-United States or pro-China. Come on, we're not this. Okay, so this is my first point. We need to understand where we are, okay, and that the things changed. And of course, it's not because I don't have European, see my friend Teresa Ribeiro work hard to have this, but because your voice is important to climate security. Okay, and we have trajectories. And this is what is really funny, because this is also the key argument for the Chinese. Okay, we need to trust in partnerships. We need to believe in the partners. Okay, so in this momentum of the world, Europe could not be disruptive with the players or the partners that we have been working together in the last 100 years. As the United States is promoting now, is provoking now. Okay, what's happened with Canada? Okay, so let's discuss the new international order and the role of Canada today with critical minerals and strategic minerals. How it's coming here, to Australia, et cetera, et cetera. So have this momentum in the world, Francesco. And I think that it's a wake-up call to Europe to come in a different way. And Brazil is a really important partner. You want this. The most important investments that you have in from our private sector is here in Europe. Brazilian companies invest in Europe. So it's really interesting that you can go to the new world, but you can go together with our old partners, refreshing things, reframing things, and understanding that to have really different ways to come. When you go to bilateral cooperation, regional cooperation, it's very interesting. When you have Europe coming to Brazil, you have different Europes, different ones. Yes, yes, it's fascinating. When I have to discuss with Nordic countries, it's one way. When I go to France, it's different. Italy, che facciamo? Facciamo niente, facciamo l'amore. Okay, domani. And you pray for that. No, but Italy, it's part of, no, it's very important. It's very important. Absolutely, we have really big investors. And we have our chamber of trade with France, with Germany, with Italy, et cetera, et cetera. So Europe is not a unit when you go to discuss, okay, our shared interests. But at the same time, you have European Union as a strategic partner to discuss cooperation considering the region. And why this is important? Because European Union, in my understanding, is full let's say, dependent on, but fully inspired on multilateralism. This is a multilateral arrangement. And that's why Brazil also supports multilateralism and understand that you need to renew it after 8 years. But when you go to China and you have this 1 month ago, the SCO meetings, that an instrument that was created 20 years ago, and have a new bank, et cetera, the guys are discussing a new way to approach multilateral system. Where we are, okay? It's no, because she had to leave, okay? So go bye-bye.
Do we have 1 or 2 questions from the audience? We've got about 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah.
How much you are completely cast because of the situation you're having with the NATO, the dependence on the US, and how much this is blocking foreign policy, European Union foreign policy to move forward and to really play a major role.
First, I add on.
No,
Or contradict.
having said that, there is no Mr. EU to talk with, you know, as Kissinger famously said some few years ago. I cannot exactly talk for this Mr. EU that we do not have. The only thing that I can say personally is that I found quite bizarre that this is just because are we online now? No, we are not online. We are not streamed or something. No, it is a Chatham House more or less. No, but it's no. The thing is that even NATO was born in 1948, if I'm not wrong. You check, you fact check the thing. Well, by the way, it was created thanks to the initiative of France and the UK at that time. The United States was not part of the very first version of NATO. I mean, NATO is an acronym for North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And in fact, now it is the Pacific, the China, which have nothing to do with the North Atlantic for all means. What I want to say is that it is an organization of the 20th century, even NATO, like the United Nations. And probably we are now talking about a new world order, no? And to find this sort of new world order, we will sooner or later also really ask ourselves if NATO is still fit for the new world order. But since I am male, I'm Italian, I'm European, it will not be me.
May I add, because I think I just quote Bastia, when goods cross borders, weapons won't. And as long as we are able to exchange, to use diplomacy, to trade with each other, I'm a fan of zero tariffs, by the way. We will have peace and economic growth and well-being for everybody, and I think this should be the most important message. So, not look in blocks, and also in Europe. I mean, if we can we also within Europe, we need to cooperate and collaborate in a better way. We have not learned in the last 50 years since the Coal and Steel Union was started how to better do. Remember back in when COVID, all of a sudden, all our borders were closed again between Austria and Germany. When for the new kids, for the young generation, this was kind of a shock. We grew up with borders, but back then it was not. So we need to think what can be done. More than 100, actually 100 before World War I. So more than 110 years ago, it was easier to travel from St. Petersburg to Lisbon, to trade from Stockholm to Athens, to ship money, to send money from Paris to Vienna, whatever. This was all easy, and we need to go back to those things to make to use modern technology and to make those advancements easier and better and more accessible for everyone. I think this should be our vision and not looking into blocks or blocking the world.
To end, because I know they have to leave, three things. The first one, COP30. I think that it's a complex COP, really complex, because of the momentum of the world, because of the climate agenda. Climate politics is in the room, not climate policies. And you have this two branch, climate diplomacy plus action agenda, that means subnational players and private sector into the rooms. Okay, and the debate will come based on the decisions that were taken by the governments, by the states in the past. So this is a huge opportunity to raise ambition on bilateral, trilateral cooperation, because private sector will could catalyze really opportunity to run, share interests, and be efficient. Societies and the states. This is very important. My second point, this COP will innovate not only action agenda, but a science pavilion. For the first time, you have a science pavilion in the COP because the chair asked this. The scientists will be there. It's very important to understand how science catalyze our cooperation and make sure that we can run this faster and faster because it's American science on climate change. And this is really a critical situation. And this means that Brazil, that's really an excellent science and climate change. We can go from China to Europe, around the world to discuss this. Third point, I think that it's very important to observe. The presidents of COP will not happen of the event of COP30. Next year, you're coming to run, okay, with what will be delivered in COP31. You have the outcomes of the COP with the complexity that you have today, but you have the dynamics around this, that the chair is coming to put this as new tracks, consider the process of COP30, from COP30 to COP35, and try to support an FCCC debate about the new climate governance. This is transition. My understanding that you should be really closer together to manage better the gaps of 1.5, et cetera, but also the lack of ambition, but to manage the asset of climate politics as an asset of the Western world, together the non-Western world. So the countries, the world will come to Brazil, but not necessarily all the world will come to Belem. Okay, when I said this 1 year ago, they want to kill me. And I said, yes. And it's impressive how the world is coming to discuss climate change and solutions for development. So we need to understand to see the different processes that we have today, to make this stronger step by step, because it's not easy to manage climate change in 9 nations versus United States drop off of the agreement. And don't forget, we had Paris Agreement because we needed United States back to climate governance. This was the key reason that will motivate this. So my understanding that come to Brazil, if you want, you know that to come. I'm waiting for you, Belem. We have different meetings there. Great, we have different meetings there, but what for me really important is that you can set an agenda for next year to work together and to prepare our ambition to come together, the next steps, not only climate change, but politically. My understanding from my generation is absolutely critical to have this cooperation with ecological cooperation, green vision cooperation, and put with European countries and forget the climate cynicism that we have today in the world. So let's do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Join me in thanking the panel.
Alessandro, you will also be in Belem.
Welcome to Belem. Yeah, okay. Okay, so I like you. They get it. They get it. See you there. Let me produce you an example. Already Well, let's see what are the expectations. Yeah. They want you to call us yourself. This is me. That's me, yeah.
That's you. That's good. So there's someone like.
That's me.
Should we?
Supposed to be. Francesco Musco, but his kid is Lamina, the University from the North.
Yeah.
Who's responsible for.
Us. Yes. Okay.
Vice President for the. Architecture in Venice.
Okay.
That's the third guy.
Maybe you can tell like.
We can.
Because
Alessandro, just one.
Allora,
This very moment. Relax. How big is how you want to go? Agree with that.
so you come here. So, okay. So, Monica, I'll see you in Belem. Okay. So I would ask the team to throw what is left of the conference inside the room. Here we go. Okay. So Alexandra, Alexandra, it is you. So you wanna do it from there? Okay, but we have Francesco. Okay. Okay, and the thing is, we will start with Francesco Musco, who should be online. Can we? Here we are, Francesco. Okay, good. Ciao, Francesco.
Ciao.
So you can go ahead now. To introduce, okay.
So, hi, everyone. Final panel of the day, and there was a slight change of plans because I'm sitting here instead of someone else. So I don't have a clue what I'm. No, but I'm a journalist, and I always I've been trained to ask questions for the past 30, 40 years. So we'll just have a nice conversation. And and Francesco, you're supposed to start and to introduce us to the topic adaptation and how to get from Venice to Belem. The floor is yours.
Yes, I should just 1 second that I try to share some slides just to introduce some elements.
Yeah, and forgive me that I don't have your title correctly, so maybe you just say 1 or 2 sentences about yourself. Okay, we are already seeing the lagoon and we can almost spot where we are. Lovely.
Alessandro Costa and I see also Sebastiano Carrer that are two great experts of a system of Lagoon of Venice, but also of the attention that the adaptation measures has been how to be developed in the system of Lagoon Venice. I just give some very quick view, especially for the system of Lagoon of Venice in particular, and understanding that I know that in these 3 days of conference, you've discussed a lot about the role of adaptation and how to support adaptation also from the financial and economic point of view, and how it's possible to integrate adaptation in the process of public and private investment. Essentially, the part of perspective is related to the global change that is totally ongoing, but as we are totally aware about that, and looking at Venice in particular, Venice is a very, very peculiar point of view, as we have seen during these days. It's a place that has been designed and realized in the centuries in a very complicated place of interface between the lagoon and the marine space. In particular, it's very evident that the Lagoon of Venice is something that is totally regulated. Is natural in some perspective, but the regulation of the Lagoon of Venice is exactly what guaranteed in the last 1,000, 2,000 years the existing of a city and the existence of a lagoon system. And nowadays, this aspect related to the regulation of a system is something more intensive, in the sense that if in the last 500 years, before the Republic of Serenissima, and then the Italian public authorities in charge of managing Lagoon of Venice, has managed and designed the existing of a lagoon, nowadays the existing of a system is a total balance between the natural effort of maintaining the natural habitat, but in a certain sense are natural, but connected to an artificial process of definition of a system. And at the same time, it's necessary to understand that what Venice suffered in terms of flooding and high tide process in the last centuries has been totally regulated or partially regulated in the aspect of the outcome of high tide, at least with the existing of a working into the system of the Moses system since 2020. It's something that has been debated for decades, in particular, and but it's very important to understand that the maintenance and the management of the lagoon and the city of Venice is something that it's very oriented to the physical intervention in terms of maintenance of the lagoon, maintenance of embankments, maintenance and upgrading also of the level of the public spaces of a city. All works that have been designed in the last 40 years at least. It's very important to understand that Venice is something that is totally regulated. The lagoon is something regulated, and despite the very evidence of a natural system that is underneath the system of the lagoon of Venice, we must be aware that, especially nowadays, we're putting work of the Moses system and the closing that maintain the lagoon of Venice and the three main mouths between the lagoon and the maritime space, maritime area. It's something that is regulated from at least two perspectives. The perspective, obviously, of the engineer work system that maintains the closing of a lagoon in case of a high tide or extreme weather phenomenon, that also something that could be overlapped with high tide, that we remember that is something natural. But the purpose is that in the long-term perspective, especially considering the perspective of sea level rise and the expecting very evident still now, already now, in terms of extremization of weather climate phenomena. The overlapping between high tide and climate weather phenomena in particular affected Venice before entering function on Mose in November 2019 with a big flooding that affected all the coastal system of Venice region with specific evidence in the lagoon of Venice with the big flooding that affected lagoon. Just a few words to say that the system of a lagoon essentially is something that is regulated because it's totally designed and managed in terms of protections at the interface between lagoon and marine areas, maritime seaside area. It's something that is regulated also with a design of nature-based solution in its activities, in particular with the naturalized coastal dunes, the recovery of dune habitats, but also with engineer perspective that is more connected with the breakwaters rainfall system, for example. All the system is a total balance. It's a balance between the capacity of the old town to be maintained with its historical heritage, and at the same time, the capacity of the lagoon to be maintained with the balance of the lagoon system management and the natural balance perspective, for example, connected with the naturalized salt marshes, protected sea marshes, or also the restoration of smaller and minor islands in the lagoon of Venice. All the intervention done in the last decades are the same scope, regulating the system of a lagoon, keeping a balance between the natural expectation or natural habitat, and at the same time put at the forefront of a debate that Venice Lagoon has a big challenge to be maintained in the next decades due to the perspective of climate change, keeping in mind that the Moses system has not been designed for climate change. It's been designed for manage the lagoon from and manage and reduce the impact on the lagoon of a natural phenomenon that is the high tide. Obviously, the high tide overlapped with the weather climate phenomenon, and silver rise that is in perspective is something that could be redesigned in the next maximum 5 decades. So we have time now to discuss how it's possible to maintain Venice Lagoon nowadays with a Mosaic working system, but also keeping in mind that if we can reduce the impact on the lagoon, at the same time also considering all the reduction of impact on cultural heritage, for example, and the impact on the lagoon derived from the high tides, both in the perspective of residential aspect activities, but also in the perspective of the natural environment and also economic environment, economic perspective. How is possible to look in the future to this? I think that the impact on Venice is totally connected to what is going to happen at a global level in terms of reduction of carbon dioxide emission in a global level, but also how is possible to keep in mind that also in case of pessimistic scenario, how is possible to keep and maintain the city of Venice for the next generation as a perspective to be considered also in terms of initiatives to adaptation. And now it's possible to guarantee the proper investment also in the cities regarding also the impact of climate change and the impact of sea level rise that is foreseen in the next 5 decades, not maximum, but also with an increase that already evident. So I think that is the real point. You discussed probably widely about adaptation and climate change in these 2 days, but I think it's looking at Venice, that is venue that guessed also the conference, and also the perspective of Dolomite Conference that you consider in the last couple 4 years. It's very evident because Venice is a condition of interaction between the Adriatic Ionian region and Dolomite regions, and also the Alpine region in particular. So there are different issues that could be counteracted, and at the same time different problems that should be considered in maintenance and adaptation of the cities. I think I can stop here and to continue the discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much. And to be honest, this is a real treat because in the beginning, everyone was surprised, like, oh, why is the Dolomite Conference taking place in Venice? And now everyone who has made it to the end of the conference now knows this is why, because it's a great example for adaptation and resilience. And and I would like to introduce 2 more experts here. Thank you, Francesco. And maybe you can say a few words about yourself. And
thank you, Alessandro. Thank you very much. I'm Alessandro Costa. I'm the director of Venice Sustainability Foundation, which is a relatively new entity established in 2022 that has the aim of contributing, promoting, facilitating, accelerating climate resilience, yes, on one side, but sustainable development more in general in Venice and in the Veneto region. And we do this by involving a lot of partners, and I'll tell you more, show you more about this in a few seconds. Sebastiano Carrer.
Thank you, Alessandro. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm Sebastiano Carrer. I'm managing the Environment and Territory Department of Thetis, which is an engineering company located very close to here in the ancient Arsenale of Venice. We grew up with a project for restoring the ancient Arsenale of Venice. We settled there, renewing all the buildings there. And we are involved since more than 30 years in these processes. In the process of the safeguard of Venice, we have quite a wide spectrum of activities, and I always say that we cover the whole value chain product, because we are we have people that are out in the field collecting water samples, and we are designing some of these interventions, and we are participating also in master planning elaboration. So we are an actor of the territory.
Well, thank you so much. So there are always two different sets, at least two different sets of challenges. One is about the technology side and the geographics and whatever, and then one is about the people side and societal and political side. So maybe may I ask each of you to if you had to give some advice to communities who are facing, climate related risks through water, weather, whatever, what have you learned here in Venice that you could give as advice to others?
2 bullet points, basically. From one side is to get to a certain level of awareness among the entire spectrum of the local community. All right, so integrate and act together. And this is the first bullet point. The second bullet would be learn from other experiences. Learn from best practices, but also learn from failures. This is still, there's still a bit of unknown in what the impact of climate change would be at the end of the day. And in order to be on the comfort zone for this, well, first of all, it's better if on your backpack you carry all the knowledge and all the experiences and possibly all the cooperation that you can create with respect to this.
I try also to limit it to 2 bullet points. Actually, we can also learn from our failures, maybe because we had done a lot of things here, but maybe I think that 30, 40 years ago, nobody was talking about co-design, co-develop, involve, engage stakeholders. Now we know that lots of activities and intervention could have been better in having more, much more people involved and listening to the territories. And I forgot the second point. Okay, I'll come later.
Don't worry. Don't worry, but yeah, maybe you could give us examples, like maybe one each for a failure or a success story where you learned something from somewhere else because you encouraged people to like look for solutions somewhere else, or isn't it the case that you always have to develop individual solutions for the specific situation? So you have like a failure that you learned from and a success story that you.
I have so many failures that I could share with you guys that is now instead of that, if you don't mind, I just would like to stress the third point, which is that if you combine the things that I was telling you previously, this means that there's a certain, let's say, capacity that we need to be able to manage in order to correctly address all the challenges that the territory has. And this capacity, it's called in the Dutch literature, it's called organizing capacity. And what I'm sharing with you today is an example which carries also and bears some failures within it, but it's a broader example of organizing capacity of a territory, which is actually the institution that I'm directing. I have a few slides that I would like to share with you. If you don't mind, I just stand up because, oh, can I use that? Thanks a lot. And okay, remember what I said. I said, make sure that there's a lot of people concurring. There's a lot of people working together towards a I'll say within a scope and towards a specific aim. And this is what Venice Sustainability Foundation was established for. If you take a look at this, what the French people would say, parterre de roi, you'll see that, is it also laser? Yeah, wonderful. It's combined by those territorial entities that better represent this territory, so the regional government, local government, then research realm, local infrastructure as the Port of Venice. So it's very complicated to read this logo here, but this is, trust me, this is the Port Authority of Venice. And financial institutions and a lot of companies. You can recognize among them some Italian blue chips or some Italian chapters of international, very well known and established companies. Well, what do? We take the challenge that we want to take on. And there are a lot of challenges that we're carrying. This is where we operate, or themes that we operate. And if you take a look at this entire set, you will see that it's a combination of trying to address challenges as we are talking about today, and trying to leverage on those opportunities that we have these days. Innovation is an opportunity. All the transitions, the energy transition, the environmental transition, the infrastructure, digital, and so on and so forth, they're all some opportunities that we have today. And the model that we have applied, so our approach, is to propose one issue to the entire partnership and to see on a debate on that part and within the partnership, if they endorse it, if there's a consensus on how we want to proceed with tackling with that specific aspect. And once you have it, well, once you reach it, well, you have this 44 different institutions that would help in making that challenge into something that is concrete and practical. So it's a way of, let's say, trying to put everyone together and to leverage on the competencies, the experiences that everyone has in order to deliver some results. We have a specific area actually, which is, and this is to address very quickly your question, instead of avoiding that and bypassing it with these words that I told you now, I'm very aware of. We have been, since the Moses system, so the barriers and all the set of interventions that within the lagoon and outside the lagoon, where all matters together, that Professor Musco told you a few moments ago. Since that moment, the moment that the Moses entered into action, and it worked, that represented probably the real best practice, or the real practice that we can share with everyone else that tackles similar challenges, similar issues in other geographies. And this has been acknowledged by the United Nations. Oof, that's the wrong one. We acknowledged by the United Nations, this is the Department for Risk Reduction, Disaster Risk Reduction, and that nominated Venice as a resilience hub. So someone that within the group, the partnership, Making Cities Resilient, which is a global partnership that looks at the 2030 horizon, we represent, we promote, we share also the experience. We are ready to technically assist whoever within the partnership or even outside the partnership would like to know more about what is our experience. And this is something that the foundation has been charged by entrusted by the City Council to deliver. with. I could talk for ages, as you have probably understood, but enough of me.
Yeah, thank you so much. What would you say? What would be your success story? Maybe failure?
Yeah. No, we have heard about, from Professor Francisco Musco that this is a semi-natural environment. And because maybe the lagoon wouldn't exist if man wouldn't diverted river, built literal defenses, and but on the other hand, in spite of this, we can say that Venetians, since the origin of the city, they understood that protecting their environment, protecting the water around the city was fundamental for the survival of the city because it was the system of defense from enemies, was providing foods and goods. So we can say that at the end, protecting the environment was one of the main policies of Venetians. And in recent times, after the dramatic flooding event of 1966, national government issued a special legislation stating that the safeguard of Venice was a preeminent national issue of preeminent interest. So they decided that the safeguard, not only physical, as already was told by Francisco, but also the landscape, the cultural heritage, the social economic system of the city was important to protect. So and they had several, Alessandro mentioned it, they had some topics. We had the pollution of all the water basin, the pollution abatement coming from all the water basin was managed by the Veneto region, the physical defenses by national government, and at city level we had the idea of facilitating livability of the city. So we had incentives to restore houses and so on. So I think that we have done a lot of different approaches, considering different authorities in charge of different topics. Now, I think that we have a new era, the Mose era. So we have this regulated system, and we have to try to find maybe a new paradigm about where we want to go. And maybe we need some metrics also, because we have this ecosystem services, for example, but how to take out ecosystem services from academia discourse, let's say, and bring it to real management of the city, and also because some ecosystem services, there are some synergies, but also some trade-offs. So we should understand how to have a holistic view of the future development in the new era. And also, as for example, for engineers, we need maybe some metrics, so because we could have some indicators to perceive why designing an intervention. That's it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, there is the prediction that we will see just many climate refugees all over the world. I mean, in Venice, it seems like everyone wants to go to Venice. Some people even want to get married here. But do you see actually people already leaving the place because of climate change, because of worries that their properties won't be valuable, that they can't, give them to their children, grandchildren, whatever? Or is it still that people are hanging in here, really want to, stay put because there's so much left to this area?
Nice question. I like it very much. because it's counterintuitive in the sense that people are leaving Venice for another reason. All right, people are living in Venice because there's a different flooding ongoing. It's a human flooding. All right, that's more philosophical maybe, but then at the end of the day, it's also very practical. We have managed to control Mother Nature from one side, let's say the physical entrance of the water. We still to make more steps in order to understand what we have to do if we want to address the other flooding that comes from exactly from a different direction. And this is the real challenge that we have today. Put it together with how much the Moses system will work when the sea level will rise that much that you probably need to shut down the circulation, so lift up the barriers for more than 150 days per year and growing. But this is one point. Now, the counterintuition is because since the Moses came into place, our real estate endowment, ability of using it increased because all the ground floors that were flooded, all of a sudden they became available. And so whoever had, and this is actually something that we live close. Our families are close, and we live quite close in the same area, and it's actually pretty connected to an issue that we are tackling these days, the two of us. This skyrocketed the costs of real estate on those ground floors that since a few days before were more liability than a resource. Most of the people are pretty happy about just finding someone else, passing the problem to someone else. So today, this is the state of the art in the lagoon. A different story will be if we talk about the mainland, but I would leave this to the next edition of the Dolomite Conference.
One piece of news for you, Alessandro, and also, Sebastiano, is that we had this within the conference. We had this group of students from Ca' Foscari that have done a great work on something called the cities retrofitting. And they will work most likely in the next months on this very problem, Venice. And just to, I think we discussed already these numbers. Venice used to have 170,000 inhabitants. I'm talking about in 1951. Now it has got something like 40,000. So from 170 to 40,000. And if you include even tourists, including B&B, Airbnb, bed and breakfast, etc., you have something like 30 million presence per year. You divide by 365, you add other probably 40,000 people per day, which makes an average of something like 70, 80,000 people sleeping in Venice, where in fact there were 170,000 people.
It's 100,000 people more every day. So every day.
Yeah, I know, but they do not sleep, most likely. So basically, you had, in 1951, something like 70 years ago, twice as people sleeping in Venice every day, which means that you have an enormous amount of real estate of which we need to find a way to give some value to it, no? And the value is potentially huge.
Yeah. So since I promised that we'll finish at 4 o'clock, maybe one final question for both of you. You are going to Belem, you're going to Brazil to the COP. What do you want to bring there from your experience, and what do you expect to get out of there? So each one of you, that might be a final contribution.
Thank you. Well, of course, our main goal as a individual and as a Venetian and as a system, of course, is to try to tell the Venice story that from the physical and sustainability point of view is quite good. There are open issues as we have seen. And going back to your question, I see that a lot of people would come and live here. But unfortunately, now we have this fact that the sleeping places, like last year or a couple of years ago, they overcome the let's say touristic sleeping beds are more than for residents. So we have this open issue, but we believe that we have a nice story to tell. And of course, we want to tell this story also because people can see and maybe help us to continue the prosperity of this community on the one hand, and from the other hand, we have these open questions about how to have an holistic view of our future, and I hope that I would learn something about that.
So yes, well, agreeing totally with what Sebastiano just said. On one side, yes, sharing our story, so disseminating and be ready to possibly inspire solutions that could be similar to ours, and also learn from this inspiration what will be the result of the reaction. But personally, I'm also interested in understanding how do we finance this adaptation. Okay, we have done it so far. We heard about this special law that was applied to Venice, and still applied, but it's funded and refunded every year, and every year it's quite a pain in the neck to get to understand what would be the exact amount of money, and to benchmark it with what is the needs that we have identified, without exaggerating. Now, I wanted to understand whether there are some other ways of financing climate adaptation in Venice, and if this could be blended with what we have so far.
Thank you so much. There's still Francesco online, and I'm not. I wasn't really aware of that. Do you have a final comment, suggestion? What would be a great outcome from Brazil, from Belem?
Thank you very much. Obviously, the message that could be taken also, Alessandro already outlined also to the next COP. Venice is a very representative case, as we have seen, but also you have realized also during these days. It's a matter of understanding how it could be representative of different coastal cities, could be representative of different cities that have similar problems, but keeping in mind that the city has specific peculiarities that already have been outlined also in the discourse by the colleagues related to the cultural heritage, the imbalance between the global touristic pressure and the inhabitants, the capacity of a system to maintain this place, and also the financial aspect outlined in this last word also by Alessandro could be a very key point to be discussed, not only at local level, but it's a matter of a wider discussion to be taken into consideration. What we can do as a research, a representative also of the research network of Correla's, the consortium of Laguna of Venice research, is to offer to the public decision and private investors future scenarios, research analysis to take the proper decision. It's a matter also to use research as a decision support system in some way.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think this will be very welcomed by many parties, many people. I'll hand over to Francesco for the final words to close the conference. Thank you, our panelists here. Thank you.
Thanks you. Thanks, Alessandro, Alessandra, Bastiano, Sebastiano and Francesco. Thanks, Venezia. Grazie.